and welcome to Congregation Beth Israel Organ Series. Today we'll be speaking to Cantor Stephanie Kupfer. She is from Westlake, California, and she is the cantor of Congregation Beth Israel. And she's had a big career, and it zigzagged a few different places, a few different ways. I'm Pat Kazakoff. Stay with me, and we're going to meet Cantor Stephanie Kupfer. I mentioned that you were from Westlake, California. So
Correct.
How do you take the LA out of the Cantor and bring her to the East Coast? How did that happen?
My pathway didn't go directly from Los Angeles to West Hartford.
Ergo the zigzags?
Exactly. So I grew up in Westlake Village. I went to Pepperdine University for undergrad, did my master's at San Francisco Conservatory. Then, just like any other individual who pursues or wants to pursue a career in opera, moves to New York.
Did you start with opera?
So I actually started singing at the age of 5 in the temple, in the shul.
I guess you must have been good.
I was not bad. And then my choir director, who's actually my voice teacher to this day, I still have weekly voice lessons with her. So she's known me since I was very little, since the age of 5. Her name is Tova Marcos. And she had recommended actually to my parents to have voice lessons. And so I started voice lessons and then started in musical theater, different musical theater productions in Los Angeles, California. It's not directly, actually it's not in Los Angeles proper. We live in the suburbs, so about an hour north of Los Angeles. So I can't say that I grew up in Los Angeles, grew up in the suburbs of Southern California.
Yes, that's right. You grew up in
near
Southern
Los
California.
Angeles. I did live at a point in time for about 3.5 years in LA proper in Los Angeles. But we lived in the Conejo Valley district. So grew up, doing various musical theater productions, and it was at age 18 when I was auditioning for college programs. I was auditioning for music programs, which is mostly classical. Usually when you're auditioning for conservatory or college, usually you major in classical music.
But up until then, had your interest been Broadway or musical theater?
It was originally Broadway and musical theater, but when I was auditioning for musical theater production, musical theater colleges or universities, conservatories, I'd realized that I wasn't as good of a dancer as others, and I had a love for the music aspect, the singing aspect, more than the dancing. And of course, as any opera singer, you have to act, and you have to be a good actor. But I felt a more connection to the singing more so than the dancing. And I said, okay, well, why not try out? Just major in music and see if I like it, and if I don't, then I could switch to a conservatory or university that has a musical theater program.
Up until that time, it was the Broadway musical theater gig.
Yes, I initially, since the age of 5, I started with Broadway Baby, singing Broadway Baby. And I have visions actually of me singing Broadway Baby with my voice teacher. And wanted to be initially on Broadway for numerous years, and I still have a love for Broadway. I think that'll never go away. But I fell in love with opera, the depth of opera, learning different languages.
You fell in love afterwards.
Right. So I fell in love with opera when I was in college. So I feel like just like anything, like wine or certain types of foods, it's an acquired taste. But I really, during my undergraduate years, I fell in love with the technique of opera and the music and learning different languages, and it was.
So how did you end up? Because I understand that there was a period of your time, a period of life where you were in New York.
Correct.
And what was going on in New York?
So after I finished my first master's in voice in opera from the San Francisco Conservatory from 2008 to 2010, most singers, what they do is they move to New York because all the auditions are held in New York City. So New York City is sort of like the epicenter of opera, of the opera world. And
In
you also
America.
have, yes, and you also have companies from Europe that go to New York and audition individuals and people in New York. So that was sort of like, that's the place to be. This is the place to be.
Just like New York is the place to be for Broadway also.
Right, correct. So what a lot of people do is after they finish their master's, or they do a young artist program, which is sort of, a young artist program is after undergraduate and graduate school, which sort of bridges the gap between the student world and the professional world. So people will do young artist programs, or people will just go and audition. Also, the young artist programs, you have to audition in New York.
So what did you do?
So that's what I did. I moved to New York. I was auditioning for a number of different opera companies. I was subsidizing my income, doing waitressing and being a personal trainer. And
so you had the real New York experience.
Correct.
Yes. And how did that work for you?
You know, it was tough. It was tough, you know, working several jobs and trying to make it. And, it was, I wasn't used to New York, and I love New York City. It's a wonderful city, but I think it's hard, just starting out.
And you were probably in an overpriced apartment as part of it.
I lived in a hole in the wall, and on the Upper East Side, a studio apartment. And I actually got a great deal at the time. I look back and I think, whoa! I mean, I got a great deal on the apartment
at that time.
So
right.
Yeah, and I think just when you live in New York, you just expect to pay those prices, because of the location. So if you're in Manhattan, you expect to pay exorbitant prices.
So how did that translate from New York? I understand you went to Germany.
Correct.
How did that happen?
So I was living in New York. I was living in New York for 2 years, and I did an opera program in Germany. And so this particular opera program, which was located in Bavaria, brings different agents to come and hear all of us sing. And there was a particular agent that wanted me to stay. And as much as I love opera and will always have a place in my heart for opera, and I realized that it just wasn't the place for me, and there were several reasons why. I'm the granddaughter of 3 Holocaust survivors, so Germany today is not what it used to be, of course. But I just felt like Bavaria is known to be a very anti-Semitic area.
Could you feel it?
I couldn't feel it, but it was very, it's a very Christian Catholic area. I don't know if it's Christian or Catholic, but it's. I just felt like it wasn't the right place for me. But there was also other reasons other than that. There was this void. There was something that was missing. I wanted to do something more meaningful. I wanted to not be traveling constantly, living out of a suitcase. I wanted a community. I wanted a sense of stability. I wanted to have family. I wanted to have kids.
So how old were you when you were in Bavaria?
I believe 26.
Okay, so you knew what you wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were pretty conscious of that
So
stage.
I'm 33 now. So this was, 7-8 years ago that this happened. But yeah, so I mean, just starting out as just starting my career, and I had realized that very early on that I had wanted to do something more meaningful.
So how did the meaningfulness translate from Bavaria?
So I grew up, Judaism has always been an integral part of my life since I was 5 years old. We were at the temple pretty much every day. I set up flowers and cookies every Friday night, every Saturday morning, which is called the oneg. It's basically after services where people go and have a bite to eat following the services. So my parents were very involved in the shul as well, in the temple as well. So I thought, well, why not synthesize my love for Judaism and my love for singing into one position? And so I went to cantorial school. Actually, I went back to New York, started cantorial school at the Academy for Jewish Religion in New York, and fell in love with. I first initially just thought, okay, I'll just get my feet wet. I'll put one foot in, maybe one toe, and kind of test it.
Right.
Because this is very new to me to kind of think about cantorial school, and I've been told, before you should go to cantorial school, but I never really thought seriously about it. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the liturgy. I fell in love with the history. I felt more closely connected to my Jewish roots. And I knew that it was a career that I would love to do and that I could see myself doing for years.
And obviously, that's how you found yourself at Congregation Beth Israel.
Yes. So
this is your first professional job as a cantor in a community.
Correct. So after my first year, I moved back to Los Angeles just because financially it was better for me to live at home. And so that was a big move, going from New York City back to Los Angeles. But I always had this feeling like that I should be back on the East Coast, and I wanted to be back on the East Coast. So I finished cantorial school. I had various jobs working at several conservative and reform temples, and then I decided, I actually found Congregation Beth Israel on Jewish Jobs because I was part of the conservative union, but I had not become part of the reform union yet. And so luckily I found this position on Jewish Jobs and auditioned, and it was actually the only reform temple that I auditioned for. And
they found you.
Yeah, they found me. So it's
it works.
Beshert. It's a match made in heaven, and it's
Beshert. You said it well.
It's meant
so
to be.
Tell me about the concert that's coming up, because I understand you're going to be in a concert with Svetlana Bendik.
Correct.
Tell me about that.
Israel. So we have our amazing organist, pianist, music director, Natasha Ulyanovsky, who is phenomenal, beyond words. And so we have various organ concerts throughout the year. And our next organ concert is going to be February 14th.
Which is Valentine's Day.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And that's why we're doing it on Valentine's Day. So it's an organ concert. I'm going to be singing along with Svetlana Bendik, who's from Israel, who's going to be singing. It's going to be a wonderful evening starting at 6:45. And then following that, we have services starting at 7:30, and it's actually Shabbat Shira, which means it's the Shabbat of song. So I personally, love Shabbat Shira because I love music and I love songs, and it's probably one of my favorite weekends of the year. And we get to do specific things for that Shabbat that we don't get to normally do. So we are going to be our choir. Natasha's going to be playing. We are going to be doing Miriam's Song of Triumph by Schubert. It's about a 10-minute piece. I wouldn't say it's easy. I wouldn't say it's tough. It's a piece. It's a long piece. Yes.
It's a long piece.
It's a long piece, and you have to prepare. And we've been preparing for a long time, and we'll continue to prepare.
I've been speaking to Cantor Stephanie Kupfer from Congregation Beth Israel. The next concert will be on February the 14th at Congregation Beth Israel. It'll start at 6:45 with a medley of different music. It'll extend till 7:30. At 7:30 there'll be services, and there'll be a concert by Schubert also. So there's only one more thing to say: be there.